What's up, fellas? Just getting back from the Burbank show and wanted to recap my pickups, show some footage of what my value box scavenger hunts look like, and provide a review of the show from a buyer's perspective. So I flew in on Thursday night with a buddy, worked remotely on Friday, and attended the show that afternoon, followed by Saturday morning before finally flying out on Saturday night. When I think about a sports card show and how I would rate it, there are a couple things I think about, which are dealer pricing, buyer traffic, any key show features like having third-party graders on site, the venue itself, cleanliness, the lighting in the room, visibility, dealer selection and variety, and really any other miscellaneous observations. So first, let's talk about dealer pricing. I have to say this is one of the fairest shows I've been to of this size when it comes to dealers pricing their cards at good rates. Most dealers had their items priced, which I know is hard to do and the market is always moving. The more common the card, the closer in line with eBay comps the cards were. The higher end items obviously are going to be in their own pricing echelon, and that's okay. I didn't negotiate for anything high end, so I can't say if there's any wiggle room, but having talked to a few people who did pick up some high end vintage items or other high end items, most were pretty happy with the deals that they got.
Zebra. Yeah, those are pretty sick. Point to the DJ.
Buyer traffic. This show was absolutely packed. It was super crowded Friday, but even more so Saturday. This is probably the busiest show I've been to outside of the National in terms of sheer volume of people, and it was very difficult to navigate and slide into a spot where you could see a showcase. The aisles had good spacing, but just a lot of people, which to me is a sign that the hobby is healthy. Additionally, there seemed to be a pretty good mix of older and younger, definitely not as many kids, but late teens, early to late 20s, all mostly looking to flip. Few true collectors unless you're older, but that seems to be the hobby state in 2024. Of course, being in California, PSA was there to do take-back subs, for which I gave them 3 subs to take back. Tag was there. The line was mostly dead. Occasionally, you could hear their machines at work, but for the most part, the Tag VIP badge lines were what the busiest was going for them. They just don't have the pricing that is enticing enough to make people switch from PSA or BGS to use them. SGC booths seemed to have some buzz on Saturday. BGS was always packed. But just like every other show they attend, their operations seem like they're from the 1700s. Just an embarrassment in terms of developing a good workflow to take in orders quickly and expediently. My friend was dropping off some cards, and apparently you can make an appointment online. One of the employees said that may be the best bet after we jumped in line, but they couldn't really direct us to the link to sign up for appointments, so it's kind of embarrassing. All around the booth was kind of a mess, which is a shame. We also heard from a lot of people that grading continues to be harsh, although that's kind of anecdotal. Their line always seemed to be the longest, mainly again because it was the slowest. If you were 20th in line, you were looking at probably a 1-hour wait, which really is absolutely crazy. Speaking of the venue itself was a sweet spot. I've been to Southern California before, but not Ontario. The airport that you fly into is probably the same size as, say, a Cincinnati, a Kansas City, or a Midway in Chicago. Easy to get in, easy to get out. Huge convention center as a venue. The show is split into 2 different rooms, one bigger room, another smaller that seemed to have more Pokemon vendors and a few other people who do YouTube content. That's where the Tag VIP line was, and also PSA drop-offs. The second smaller room was much more well lit than the main room, but overall no complaints in terms of visibility. Ontario itself was kind of sketchy. I did get harassed by some of California's finest homeless who seemed to own one of the local corner intersections near my hotel. And at that corner, there always seemed to be a pissed off BMW sedan driver with pimped out wheels who was trying to race somebody or was driving to commit a domestic crime. Just a weird collection of humans that live in that area. Not a place I really enjoyed walking around, and the food selection, like having a cool sports bar nearby or a dive bar to go to after the show like there was in Phoenix or in Chicago at the National, that's just non-existent. So overall, the venue itself was great, but once you walk outside, it's kind of like going in that movie Back to the Future 2's parallel universe where Biff kind of ruined it for everybody and the city had turned into a hellhole. But that may just be a normal day in Southern California at this point. I don't know. Definitely couldn't live there. There's no way. As far as dealer selection and variety, this show had just about anything you could want. High-end MJ autos, got it. 90s rare inserts, mostly in high grade, got it. 101s or number to 5 from the best players of the best products, no problem. Ultra modern high end, mid end, low end, all there. Value boxes seem to be a little bit more prevalent on Saturday, and I do think those were more sparse than some other shows I've been to. There are quite a few vintage dealers. Hockey wasn't as common. Now for me, I'm not going to a show like this to buy high-end or slabs, but 80% of the tables were basically high-end or slabs or a combination of both, or mid to high-end slabs. My goal is to buy raw cards, get them graded, so I much prefer the smaller shows in the boonies that really none of the influencer bros go to. To me, those have the best opportunity to buy what it is that I like to buy. But if you're wanting to buy, sell, trade high-end slabs, this may be a show worth going to on par with a Dallas, maybe even a little bit better than a Dallas. Will I come back? Honestly, it's probably not worth it unless I bring stuff to trade or attempt to set up as a dealer. We will go through my pickups in a bit, but for the most part, paying $150 round trip for tickets plus hotel for 2 nights can get a little cost prohibitive. The entire weekend of the show, I bought probably 5 to 6 times more cards on eBay than I did attending the show. But, don't get me wrong, I'm still happy that I went, as I view this as more as entertainment, attending shows like this. Is it something for me to do on the weekend? But having this as my side hustle, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to make the trip again, especially in February. It's peak ski season, and I could be blowing my money out on the slopes all weekend long. The last thing I'll touch on is it seemed like there were far more card cleaners than I ever remember seeing at a card show. And I use the term card cleaner here loosely. There are more akin to card doctors, guys who are soaking cards to remove creases, removing surface scratches and print lines. I haven't really commented on this too much, but a lot of this falls into the gray area for me, if not crossing over the line. It's one thing to wipe down a card. It's another to soak the card or use some type of solution to remove creases, breaking the card's integrity, or using some other product to really doctor the card. I'm not a fan of this. I don't think the grading companies would openly accept it if they knew the card had anything done to it like this. But business for these guys is booming, so there's that. Don't really have anything else to say about it. In summary for the show, if I were to rate this show on a scale of 1 to 10, for the average person out there, I would say that this show is probably a 9 for you. For the things that I like, I would say this probably falls in roughly a 7.5 territory. Because again, it seems the further out west you go, the more slabs that you're going to see, the more people who are looking to flip, and the opportunity for buying to grade is much more smaller as compared to shows out in the east or in the Midwest, where there's more of those longtime dealers who haven't necessarily got caught up into the grading frenzy necessarily. But I did thoroughly enjoy meeting a lot of people who watch the channel, who interact on the channel, and they all seem to really enjoy the show in itself. Also made some really good tips for future content. So I always enjoy going to shows like this and meeting people who who watch this. So greatly appreciate that, and that makes making this content a lot easier. All right, so we're gonna wrap up the video here. I do have another separate video that I'm gonna go through all the pickups that I had at the show. It's just unfortunately too long. It's about 22, 23 minutes, and don't wanna have this go too long. So let's just go ahead and wrap this one up here. This will just be a review of the Burbank show, my thoughts on it, the pros and cons. And again, overall, I think this is a great show. I will say, the one thing that I forgot to mention is the dealers all seem to be having a phenomenal show. So if you are a dealer from your perspective, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below, but everything that I could hear is you are absolutely crushing it at this show. So I think from the dealer's side of things, this is a fantastic show to come set up at. Granted, it's $600 a table, so you got to sell a lot of stuff. That's a high entry fee in terms of setting up at this show. In addition to that, the travel and expense and all those sorts of things. But I don't want to close this video out without mentioning that all the dealers were doing a really, really good job in terms of moving product at the rates that they wanted them. Of course, you have to be competitive. You have to price your cards competitively, but everybody was having a great time in terms of an easy time in terms of moving cards. So definitely want to make that noted. But if you want to see my pickups, just wait out for the next videos. I'm going to publish those, and we'll go through all the reasons why I bought the cards that I did. It's mainly going to be value boxes like you see that I'm going through here. So we'll have some of that footage, and then also cover some of the cards that I got. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you guys next time.